Hi everybody, this lesson is going to be lesson 5.4. We are still in the polynomial unit and we are talking about factoring. So one thing is that we're going to focus on this unit this lesson is sums and differences of cubes, which means that you really ought to know your perfect cubes. Take a minute and fill this out. This is going to be something that we're working on memorizing, and you ought to know these or at least recognize them when you see them. So pause the video here and fill this in. Okay, here are the perfect cubes. Again, you ought to recognize these, probably memorize them. Yes, your calculator can do it, but if you can recognize them and see them, then it'll just make your life a little bit easier. And I added on here 10 to the, oops, that should be a third. 10 to the third is 1,000. So just keep that in mind as well. Okay, so why we need these is for factoring cubes. And we have two different kinds that we're going to be working with. The sum of cubes and the difference of cubes. So sum, obviously we're adding. Difference, we're subtracting. And these are the formulas, and you really do need to memorize these formulas. And so how are you going to do that? Because there's a lot going on there. Well, I'm going to use the little mnemonic of SOS, same opposite sum. What that means, SOS, same opposite sum, is if you look here in what you have, if this is plus, this is the same, it's plus. The next one is opposite, it's minus. And then lastly, it's always the sum. If we look at this other one with a difference, it's the same thing. If it's minus here, this is the same minus. Opposite of minus is plus, and we always end with a sum. So SOS is going to tell us what signs to put in the parentheses. Let's do some examples so you can see what we're talking about. All right, when we look at examples, what we want to do is look at these numbers and think about in our head, well, what is the cube root of 8? And the cube root of 8 is 2, because we just thought about it at the very top of the page. And what's the cube root of x to the third? Well, that's x. So when we write our answer, we're going to follow this pattern. It's a plus, so we're going to take the top one. And so the top one says a plus b. Well, a is 2 and b is x. And then we're going to have an a squared. Well, that's 4 because 2 squared is 4. And then same opposite sum. So that's the same. The next one is opposite. In the middle goes a times b. That's just 2x. And then sum is always a plus. And then b squared is x squared. So we're going to use these formulas as sort of a pattern of where to put all the numbers. Let's do another example. Oh boy, well this example I cannot do because if I look at these numbers and I look up here, 4 and 108 are not on my list, so that's a problem. Well, what am I going to do about that? Well, I'm probably going to factor something out. So let me look for a GCF. So as I look for GCF, it looks like I have an x to come out for the GCF and also a 4. So 4x goes into here, x to the third. And 108 divided by 4 is 27. And I took out the x, so now I have this. Okay, now with what I have, my a is the cube root of x squared, which is just x to the third, which is just x. And my b is the cube root of 27, which is 3. So I'm going to go, this is still a plus, I'm going to go a plus b. That is x plus 3. And then a squared is x squared. And I go, it's a plus, so I go same and then opposite. And this is 3x. And at the end is the sum, which is plus 9. Because 3 squared is 9. Okay, let's go on and go to the next example. Now we have some minuses. Okay, well that's all right, we can do that. A here is the cube root of 125d to the third, which is just 5d. And the cube root of 8 is 2. Now notice I said 8 and not negative 8 because the sign is accounted for in our SOS rule. So don't worry about the sign of that. Just look at the 8 only. Okay, so I do not have any GCF, so I'm just going to go with what I have. And so that is going to be 5D. Same is minus 2. And then opposite and sum. Okay, so 5D, I square that, and when I square 5D, I get 25D squared, because 5D squared is like 5D times 5D. In the middle, I have 10D. And that's where I'm saying don't worry about the sign, because it's taken care of in the SOS rule. And at the end, I'm going to square this, and that gives me a 4. So this is my final answer for factoring, is this answer here. Do one more example. So on this one again, let's go ahead and take out a GCF, because I can take out that 2 and I can take out an x squared. So that's going to give me x to the third minus 8. All right, so my A is x and my B is 2. Try this one. When you write it out, you're going to have, and I'm looking back at number 4. I forgot to write that on number 4. On number 4, we need to take this 4x, number 2. Number 2, we need to take this 4x and put it in our answer. So our final answer has the 4x and the x plus 3 and this trinomial x squared minus 3x plus 9. So you have to include that 4x with your answer, okay? I bring that up because that's what I was about to say with this one. Make sure you include your 2x squared. Go ahead and pause the video here. Try to finish out number 4. All right, so my answer here is 2x squared times x minus 2 times x squared plus 2x plus 4. Let me just point out a couple of things. The 2x squared is the GCF that we took out. Then x minus 2 was just this x minus 2. Same is minus here, then it's minus here. Opposite is plus here, sum is always plus on the end. So the x squared and the 4 in the middle goes to 2x. Now let's talk about a couple of things. One thing is, what if you forget the formula or the rule? Well, you can always go back and double check it by multiplying it out and seeing if it works. So let me show you with number 1, for instance. If I was going to check this, I would just multiply it all the way out. So that's going to give me 8 minus 4x plus 2x squared. And then multiply these 3. So that's plus 4x minus 2x squared and plus x to the third. And now when I add my like terms, here is a plus 2x squared, here's a minus 2x squared. Here's a minus 4x, here's a plus 4x. And so I can see now that when I do this, I get 8 plus x to the third. And that was the original problem. And so you can always check it by trying and multiplying it back out. And I bring that up because I personally, I have to tell you, sometimes I get confused on, okay, I know the first one and I know the second one, but I cannot remember what's in here. I always forget it. Well, then just try something and check it and see if it works. And if it's wrong, change it and try it again. Okay, so that's one thing, is you can always check it. Another thing is the remaining trinomial sure looks like it could be factored. Like this seems like this maybe would factor. Because it seems like it's a perfect square, doesn't it? But it's not. Because watch, let's say you thought it was x plus 2 times x plus 2. Well, if you did that, that would give you x squared plus 2x plus 2x. I'm going to write this down. And then plus 4. All right, well, when I do that, the x squared is right, the 4 is right, but this part is not right, because this would be a 4x and I only have a 2x. So it actually cannot be factored. And that's for each one of these. They all kind of look like maybe they ought to be factored, because like, wow, that kind of seems like we ought to factor it. Nope, it does not factor. So once you get this done with SOS, then you're done. And you cannot go any farther with what you have here. And then the last thing I wrote in the margin over here, if you don't have perfect cubes, look for the GCF. Like 2 and 16, those are not perfect cubes. So I had to factor out a GCF. Okay, that is the sum and difference of cubes. Let's turn the page and we can do the U method on the back.